the one with the exclamation point.
What a jam by Grant Hill.
There's Scott for three.
Kenny Smith hitting the three.
Big time plays here by Steve Smith.
And it's time for another fun-filled hour of NBA talk called Open Court here on NBA TV. And just so you know at home how this works, these shows are all taped over a couple of days, like 8 episodes. And so this is really the most dangerous taping window right after lunch. As we have had in the past, we've had Charles Barkley actually falling asleep at the wheel.
That was our best show.
It's like in mid-answer, he fell asleep. And then remember how he tried to cover it up, Jet?
But if y'all wasn't so boring.
No, but the first move was always this: check your nails. Sure, I'm right.
Oh, right. That was Bill Russell. Y'all wasn't. Sorry.
At any rate, hoping to stay awake for the entire hour is the following panel. They call him 3D, Dennis Scott. They call him Zeke, Isaiah Thomas. They call him the Jet, Kenny the Jet Smith. They call him G-Money, Grant Hill. They call him Steve, Steve Kerr. What did they call you, Steve?
Steve.
Steven, maybe on a, okay. They call him Smitty, Steve Smith, and they call him Bones, Brent Berry.
That's the first time I heard G-Money.
Me too.
Yeah.
I had to have something to work towards.
I was just trying to figure, why doesn't he have a nickname?
New Jack
That's
City.
That's interesting because.
Kid and Play, that was at one point.
Kid and Play.
Yeah, you had the flat. That's when he had the hair. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was G-Money.
G-Money, G-Thrill, you know. Whatever.
Ernie, what do they call you, Ernie? After all these years, what do we call you?
EJ.
EJ, that's it? It's EJ?
Everybody got a nickname.
Easy. EJ.
Not
Ernst.
Elevator Ernie?
Elevator Ernie. Yeah, they call me that too.
all right.
And we all know the reason why we don't need to go there.
He was smuggling grapes that day. Show the picture
I put those shorts. I put those shorts on the other day. They still fit.
Oh! Don't tell us what you and your wife doing in the bedroom. We don't want to know. We don't know what kind of. What they call it? TMI? TMI. He's like, hey, baby, elevator Ernie. Been in the ball on one thing. Tell you, boy. That's too much right there. Player.
From the Himalaya. So, where were we? Anyway, we're calling this show "You Remind Me," and what we want to do, I want to throw a few names out of current day players and have you all weigh in on who they remind you of from possibly back in the day. Does anybody remind anybody? Does LeBron James remind you of anybody, or is this just a freak of nature?
I've never seen anyone like him in terms of that size with his skill set. You know, we've seen big guys like Karl Malone or Magic Johnson, but, you know, with his skill set in terms of being able to shoot the basketball, being 6'8", 6'9", you know, 260, 270, handle the ball out front. The closest I would say, and this is bad, remember Super John Williams who went to
John, with one leg up.
Yeah, but he wasn't the type of athlete that LeBron. I don't think I've ever seen an athlete or a player with this type of skill set at this size.
He reminds me of Oscar Robertson, you know, kind of half court. Not
but
the
Oscar
full court.
was like 6'5".
But the fact that he would back
Big
you
body,
in, and then he'd throw his arms into you. Like I remember those highlights when I was younger, just kind of seeing all the highlights going on in NBA basketball. He reminded me a little bit of Oscar, except for, you know, the transition. But in that half court, I thought it was a lot like that.
He's got a little Scottie Pippen in him defensively, the way he plays. Obviously, LeBron's a lot bigger, but Scottie could also guard 1 through 4. LeBron can actually guard 1 through 5 these days because there aren't many centers.
I think the thing with him, though, you talk about guys 6'8" who can handle the ball and do a lot of things, defend, pass, score. Scottie, I think Smitty was a player. I like to think I was that kind of guy, but we were finesse players for the most part. We were speed, quickness. He has the speed and quickness, but he has that power that you haven't seen. Yeah, I mean, he has that Karl Malone type strength and power and explosiveness that really we have never seen.
Ball handling to me is the separator between a great player and a average player on the offensive end. To me, if he couldn't handle the ball, you could play off him on his jump shot. He couldn't pass the ball as well. He couldn't get you in transition. His ball handling separates you if you want to be a great player and be big.
Russell Westbrook.
I think in terms of his north to south play, and the way he can play downhill, he reminds me a lot of Jason Kidd, the way that he can get into a straight line. I'm not talking about, obviously, distributing the ball. That's something that Russell's working on, but it's the straight line going from point A to point B. I think that he's got a lot of Jay Kidd in him that way.
Fire away, y'all.
I got one. Alvin Robinson.
I was going to say
Alvin
Alvin, but Alvin didn't have that kind of offense.
He didn't have the offensive game.
Yeah, but
in terms of the body and the quickness and really getting around the rim and dunking instead of getting around the rim and finishing with trick layups. You know, Russell dunks from a standstill. You know what I mean? Like most point guards are dunking from standstills. They get a run, start, or whatever.
Maybe a young Latrell Sprewell in Golden State, when he came into everything was catch it and go. And that's the first one I can think of. Transition, grab the ball off the rim, he'd be out and go. And now Russell has mastered that free throw line jump shot, coming at you full speed and then stop and pull up and knock that down.
I think Latrell was probably the closest.
Closest thing, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably, he's just more physical than Latrell.
That's a good call.
Yeah.
That's a good call.
Kobe.
I would have to say Jordan. You know, he's, you know, from mannerisms and everything. I think the way he walked, the way he shoots, the way he carries himself. You know, and it's not a bad role model to have. No, not a bad person to emulate. You know, so and I think he's the closest thing to Jordan that we've seen.
That's easy.
All right, that's easy. I echo that, Jordan.
How about Derrick Rose?
In terms of penetration and getting to the basket and taking a hit, not necessarily finishing at the rim, I would say myself, maybe a little Tim Hardaway. I think the guards, you know, coming out of Chicago, know how to get to the rim and know how to take a hit. Now, we never had the athleticism that he has because he gets to the rim and he finishes with a dunk. But if he can ever put a jump shot within his game, you know, he's...
To me, he's an athletic Rod Strickland.
Ooh, that's where I was going to. Yep.
Yeah, he does the way Rod Strickland used to score and get in the lane, but he just wasn't as explosive athletically.
Well, you said something earlier that because Rod wasn't a great outside shooter, his ball handling was off the chart. So he would cross you up, get you off your feet, and get you to the basket.
I also think
Derrick handles that rock.
Yeah.
Kevin Johnson. I mean, he reminds me a little, not quite, you know, obviously he is more powerful than Kevin Johnson. But KJ was somebody that got to the rim, could finish in, you know, amongst the trees, and was somebody who was super athletic.
Let me turn the question around a little bit now and say, who's today's John Stockton?
I think as long as he's playing, Steve Nash is as close as you're going to get to what John Stockton was about. I mean, the consistency in terms of shooting the basketball. Steve is one of the game's greatest shooters of all time. John Stockton consistently a 50% shooter, a playmaker, an assist maker, but, I mean...
I don't see that.
You don't think
I don't as much. Only
because of the offensive end of the ball?
I think
because of the willingness to score?
I think John Stockton, to me, played free throw line in. Like, he really penetrated the basketball free throw line in, where Steve Nash plays free throw line out. He's really a three-point shooter.
Well, now you're going to go into system, though, because one guy was locked into Jerry Sloan's half-court offense where it was run selectively and advance with the pass, which is something that I think that's one of the biggest things that Steve and John share is the willingness as a point guard to advance the ball on the pass and play. But their system...
But I wouldn't play if I don't know, Steve, Isaiah, if you were guarding them, my first thing would be make Nash drive. My thing with Stockton would be make him shoot from the outside. So I would think of them, I would be playing them totally different. Like, I wouldn't want Steve Nash to be a jump shooter. I would say I want to get him in the lane.
Or you'd say help if there was a pick and roll coming.
Oh, pick and roll.
Help.
You know, I think, John, I played against John since I was 13 years old. And, you know, he's a much better outside shooter, much better with the basketball. And when you're talking about, you know, Nash and Stockton, I just think from a toughness standpoint, I don't think there's a comparison. And I don't know if we have anybody in our game today with his type of toughness, physically or mentally. And you know, when you played against John, I mean, you had to bring your lunch. I mean, on the offensive side and the defensive side, because, you know, there was a toughness about him that he carried that, you know, I don't know if we have anybody in our game today that really brings that to the table.
I would put Chris Paul in that conversation. I know they play differently and they look different, and Chris is much bigger, but John was one of the strongest guards in the league. I don't know if you guys felt that.
I got hit by one of them screens.
Yeah, he was, but the toughness, the competitiveness, I see a lot of that in Chris Paul, and the point guard mentality. What's happened today, you guys know, point guards are more looking to score. You got guys who really want to score. John was always looking to pass. I always feel like Chris Paul can score whenever he wants, but he's got a kind of an old school point guard mentality.
But, you know, I always thought like, you know, Stockton as a scorer, if he was in this game today with no centers and no big, I felt like, you know, he made Malone. I don't know if Malone would have been the type of player he was had he not had a Stockton. You know, and I felt like if Malone's not in the way and you put them in this game today, I think Stockton in this game, you know, he can score the basketball easily, get to the basket, and be just as good as anybody playing.
Now these guys have obviously shown that they have a firm grasp on where we're going with this show. When we come back on this edition of You Remind Me, it's who's the present day Kenny Smith? Who's the present day Steve Smith? Who's the present day Isaiah Thomas? And on and on and on. Put your thinking caps on, and we'll be right back.
You should have let us know. That would have been good on the spot.
They sent us an email a couple of days ago.
Welcome back to Open Court, where we're playing kind of a You Remind Me theme on this show. And I'm going to start the second segment with the guy who was most concerned about the way we ended the first, and that is Kenny Smith. As I said, so who would you describe in the game today would be you? Who do you see your game in today's game? And if you don't feel comfortable answering that, I'm sure there are 6 other guys who would.
I would feel comfortable. Honestly, I'm not sure, because like the emphasis that I think when I came into the league that you kind of emphasized, those aren't emphasis now.
Like what?
Well, I think being able to run an offense to make sure everybody is in their place was very valuable. And
it's not so much anymore.
Not really. I don't think so. And I think the other, being able to make entry passes was like super important. If you couldn't play if you couldn't make entry passes to your guys. From when I played with Sacramento with Wayman Tisdale to all the way with Akeem Olajuwon, that was the most important thing, is getting the ball to how you get it inside. And so we used to have drills where you just make an entry pass around 3 guys, make an entry. So now it's kind of like, show your handle, a little bit different. So, and then early, I just feel I was athletic early, and then at the end, so it's depending on what. I'm not sure.
So there's no. So I mean, honestly,
I really
watching the
don't.
game, there's not a guy you say, you know, I see a little bit of myself in that guy. Okay, thank you for dodging the question.
No, I'm just saying. If there's anybody out there,
you're going to answer it 3D?
Can you answer that?
About Ty Lawson.
Yep.
I don't see Ty Lawson.
well,
I'm talking about a young Kenny,
Kenny's
Smith.
like Tyler. Okay.
To a young Kenny Smith. I'm not talking about the Kenny Smith of Houston.
Right.
When you early years away, Ty pushed it, used to push it early.
Okay, that's a good comparison.
Okay, good.
I agree with that.
Thank you.
You know what I mean?
The only reason,
What do you get? 90 million last year?
that's really good.
Yeah.
That's the only reason.
Carolina.
Yeah, and he went to Carolina.
He went to Carolina. That's why Kenny
like,
yeah.
I don't see it.
He should say Brooks Thompson or somebody. The guy who played
Don't steal other people's answers.
This is not a forum for getting years of stuff off your
I thought this was a roast.
Okay, 3D. Who do you see in the league who reminds you of you? And please try to give us an answer so the other guys don't have to chip in.
I got one.
Oh, go ahead. You tell him, and maybe he'll.
Go.
Through his career, when he was young to old, like Mike Miller.
I was
Handle
going to say
it.
Quentin Richardson. Deep range.
Yeah.
Nah, he's better.
Strong.
I think he's a little bit better.
See, I like you know what?
Better, but I'm just saying.
I'm just trying to put it in the same vein.
Well,
For me, I'll say this. We were talking about it earlier. For me, when I came into the league, you were saying figure out your own way, how to find your niche. For me, it was the transition 3. Because you're taught in basketball, you do the 4-on-4 drill, sprint to the paint. So my first day in practice, we running that drill. Everybody's running to the paint. I stop back, call it and let it fly.
Well, there's paint there at the three-point line.
No, it's not.
It's
That's called a little line, real small little line.
Yeah.
So for me, I thought that was the kind of help in making the 3D game where everybody was going to the paint. I was stop and pop in the transition. I can't think of a guy like Mike Miller who that's where in a game where everyone's thinking about he stops in transition and lets it fly.
I like the direction this thing is taken.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a little easier for everybody else to look. No, 3D, I see this. So we'll keep it going that way. Because, maybe a little reticent to talk about yourself.
Well, I thought I was LeBron a little bit.
No, you're not. But, and I'd include Grant, but Grant is still Grant. So I don't, you remind me of Grant Hill. Go back a few years and I mean, you look at Grant Hill. What type player are you? Who do you see?
I mean, I think my career is kind of like 2 or 3 different careers. So if you're talking early in my career,
let's talk pre-ankle.
Pre-ankle.
Who's that now?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say that the best player in the game, LeBron, but
you should.
I think there's some similarities in terms of how we approach the game, the versatility, the scoring, the rebounding, the sort of kind of trying to do it all on the court. I think he was a lot better at being LeBron than I was. Obviously, but I see some similarities when I watch him play.
What he has over you, the only thing I think is the long ball.
Size.
Power.
Size.
The long ball, but his long ball,
I was never a three-point. I got to a point where I was really good at mid-range.
Right.
But I think, when I see LeBron, I think he comes out and feels out the game. I don't think he comes out like I'm going to, score 15 points in the first quarter. I think he just kind of gets a feel what's happening.
That's what you did.
Yeah, it just kind of, you just let the game play. And obviously, if you're playing against Glenn Rice, I always felt the best defense was good offense. So let me go at him early, try to get him in foul trouble. But for the most part, you kind of, you got to feel the game and how it was going, what was needed, who's hot, who's not, how your matchup is going, how your shot's going. But for me, it was always get to the paint. If I can get into the paint, something's going to happen. And either that's going to be for me or for my teammates or dropping it off to the shooters, the big guys inside. But that was always, just keep probing, keep attacking, and just sort of read what happens.
Who's the present-day Steve Kerr?
What's interesting is that the league has changed so much. I mean, you can pick out a spot-up shooter and say, maybe Kyle Korver or somebody like that. But when I was playing, I could pick out 5 or 6 guys who I could emulate because there were a lot of 6'3", 185-pound two guards back in the day. There were. I mean, Trent Tucker, Craig Hodges, John Paxson.
Matt Maloney.
There's a good one.
I mean, great shooter.
Jeff Hornacek. There were a lot of guys who I could guard at the 2. I was kind of a combo. I could play some point, but I wasn't a true point. But back then, there were tons of guys. Now, all the 2 guards are like 6'6" with long arms. There just aren't a lot of players my size today unless they're true point guards with a lot of ball skills.
J.J. Redick.
Yeah, J.J.
Yeah.
And he's developed a lot more. Both he and Korver come off screens really well and get into the lane. They do that a lot better than I ever did. But there's always got to be shooters on the floor, obviously, for floor spacing. But I just think the point is that the players have gotten a lot bigger and stronger at that position.
Well, who's the new Zeke?
Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, that's a good
one.
Kyrie Irving.
Very nice, 3D.
Yeah, because I'm glad. I thought the obvious one because of size, everyone says is Chris Paul. But I don't think that Chris plays like Isaiah. I think because Chris Paul is great in the half court. Isaiah actually won championships in the half court, but was best in the full court. Yeah. When he's in the transition, that's why the All-Star games, you see him, you go, that's the real Isaiah. Like I told him in the back, I was like, he's with Kelly Tripucka, and he was running and scoring 35. I used to watch that Isaiah every night. I said, when they start winning championships and slowing you down, I ain't never watch them. I was like, oh, I don't like that Isaiah. Isaiah's whack. I want the other Isaiah.
Chris Paul's leadership kind of reminds you the way you led. Like you said, okay, I don't see the similar the way you play, but the leadership qualities, the feistiness, getting after his teammates. That's what I see in Chris Paul. And
I hate
kinda
to
what
lump
see.
expectations on him, but Damian Lillard may have a little Zeke in him, too, coming out of Portland. Potentially some of those signs in what it is that he brings to the table.
Plays too perimeter to be.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm close to any of them guys y'all just named, thank you.
Whoa, time out. They at home going, if I'm close to these guys, thank you. Thank you.
Hall of Famer, one of the 50 greatest of all time. Who's the new Smitty?
You got to have bad knees. Really bad knees. Let me see. I can't really think.
I got one. Paul George. There's a little, just the length and the versatility.
He jumped so high.
You know, I would say
you should jump before that knee, though. You used to get
I
up
would
there,
say a
too.
little bit of O.J. Mayo, not with the handle though. He
Maybe
didn't.
Joe Johnson.
Yeah, Joe Johnson.
Joe Johnson.
There it is.
That's a good one.
Joe Johnson with an attitude.
Yeah.
Joe Johnson
No, but
with
you
a
know
pulse.
what? If Joe Johnson had his attitude.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, come on.
Oh, my gosh. If Joe Johnson had his attitude, get out of here.
This is Joe Johnson with a pulse.
I'm not saying bad. I just like Joe's very stoic. Smitty was not stoic when he played.
No, he wasn't
When
at
he
all.
hit a jump shot, he let you know about it.
Yeah.
Ernie, we're playing them in the playoffs in the Hawks and the Magic. We got him down 3-0. They come in. He make his first shot. Here we go, 3D. We coming at you. Here we go. And they win the game, so they didn't get swept. We had to come back to Atlanta to win that series.
Man.
There's only one guy left. Brent Barry. Who's the new Bones?
I would say Manu Ginobili-ish.
Well, that's very kind of you.
No, in your heyday. In your heyday.
Well,
Seattle,
that's very
Seattle?
nice of you. I think,
Your heyday was small window.
well, I appreciate that, too.
I think
But in Seattle, it was really the only opportunity that I really felt like I had a chance to play open and just, like, let things go. So I think a lot of I watched Ricky Rubio play, and I think
Rubio.
you know what? That's I wish I had that chance for a longer period of time. I wish that storm had lasted a little bit longer. It would have been fun. And then I think Mike Dunleavy Jr. and I have very similar games. Our dads are great guys, ex-NBA players. But just the ability
out of control.
as your career goes on to adjust and find out what it is that you do well and to continue to do that, pass and move and space and know the game. I think Junior is probably the guy I would look at close. He's a little bigger and stuff, but that guy in Rubio maybe.
But the mannerisms, I said Ginobili because of the movements and the length. That's what I was thinking as well.
But I
Take
always
chances.
thought like you played at a great tempo for your size. You know what I mean? Like most taller guards, you know, they didn't have the tempo and the pace that you played with. Like some guys, they make a pass and then they'll make a cut. They jog through the cut. Like your cuts were always crisp. They were always sharp. I mean, you played with a certain tempo and pace that was. I always enjoyed watching you play at that pace and tempo.
Could you guys make a copy of this, please?
Got it.
Ernie,
It's being delivered even as we speak.
Ernie, what about you?
Who's the modern day me? Mm-hmm. Oh, the modern day me.
You've been doing it for 30 years.
No, it's like 24 years.
30 years?
It's Matt Weiner, obviously.
There you go.
Matt Weiner.
Very nice.
I see a lot of Matt Weiner.
Very nice.
See me and Matt Weiner, whatever.
Is he on the elevator?
Huh? let me be crystal clear here. There's only one element. We'll be back with more on Open Court right after this. And welcome back to Open Court. This question, we're going to phrase one of two ways. You can take it one of two ways. What's the best era in the NBA? You can either go or decade. What's the best time frame? And if you didn't play in the era that you did, when would you have liked to have played in the NBA? Or would you love to be playing right now? You're laughing. You go first.
Oh, I think we all would like to be playing now.
Dollars aside.
Well, no dollars. I mean, just the style and the pace of the game. I mean, it's a guard's game. And, the big man can't hit you. You can go to the basket anytime you want to. Somebody touch you. You can get to the foul line, 10 to 15 times a night. I mean, it's easier to score. I mean, for me as a point guard, I would love to play in this era. Now, I think the toughest era, just looking at it, is the '80s. I mean, when you look at, the two teams that, we argue and say are the two best ever. Boston's '86 team is, arguably the best team to ever play, in the NBA. And then that Laker '87 team, some people have that in the top, 3 to 4. So I think in that era with Dr. J, Kareem, Magic, Bird, some of the 50 greatest players, a lot of them are in that era.
I would agree. Men played in the 80s. Like, it was, you're 28, 29, you were hitting your career, figuring it out. We're here, you're 21, 22, different type of player. This is the most fun era to watch.
What's the best?
And easiest. Oh, the 80s. 80s is the best.
80s is the best. The toughest and best.
Toughest and best. Easiest and most fun to watch is now. I think that guys who are stars would be average players in the 80s. There's a lot of stars that would be average players in the 80s because their skill set doesn't allow them to do anything but one thing.
You don't mean superstars, you're saying next level down, stars.
Superstars.
There are superstars now who would be average players in the 80s.
I want names, Kenny. I want names.
Yeah.
I mean, okay,
I would say stars. I don't know about superstars.
I would say this because Charles and I always have a thing where we talk about to be a superstar, you have to contribute to the game 5 different ways. Superstars today, they don't have to. They only have to contribute 3, scoring, rebounds, assists. But leadership and controlling the tempo of the game, and the 6th would be defense. So most superstars in our era, Isaiah Thomas, Magic, they led it in 5 categories. Magic, control the tempo of the game, the scoring, assists, rebounding, leadership. Boom, that was automatic. You can't do that with today's superstars. There's maybe 2 or 3 guys that, LeBron would be one, Kobe would be another, and my list would start, I would start really searching on my list that could do those 5 things and maybe
back
those
in the
6.
80s. Wow, okay.
And
What do you think?
You don't think Kevin Durant would be a superstar player back then?
The list starts to, you see how, you didn't go, if you would have went to me and said, hey, what about Kevin Durant? What about blah, blah, blah? What about blah, blah, blah? And I would have been like, maybe I was wrong. But you stop short with one guy. The list just dwindles. But when you say superstars of the 80s, you go Malone, Kevin McHale, you go Bird, you go, these guys did so many different things because now I think the money, people get paid and people think that they're great because they get paid. No, they get paid because they contribute to that team, that valuable to that team. Doesn't mean they're a superstar because you get $90 million. That's all I'm saying.
Is there any part of any of you that says, boy, I'd like to have been playing back in the black and white film days?
No.
Well, to see those guys coming down court dribbling like that, I'm not gonna lie, I would love to play like that. What? Joker only got one arm. He can't go left, but Joker going left like this.
And when he shoots, he goes like this.
Then he shoots, he goes.
Hold it.
Oh, no, but yeah, I would love that.
But I think there are some players in the 80s that couldn't play in this era. And I think it's because of the rules. The rules, you can take some players in this era and bring them into the 80s and they still would have success, and then some of them wouldn't. And I think you can take, like a perfect example, like Robert Parrish, a center like Parrish or Sigma, I don't know if they could play in this era. And then you say, would Magic Johnson be a point guard in this era, or would Magic Johnson probably be a center in this era? Magic Johnson probably wouldn't be running the point, playing high pick and roll.
And you know what would have happened? That coach would have been fired.
But I'm just saying,
he couldn't recognize that Magic Johnson.
No, but think about it. No. Let's think about it. Like seriously, right? In this era, right? So Magic Johnson guarding Westbrook, Paul. All the guards, Derrick Rose, so forth and so on.
He would have guarded the small forward.
Yeah. He would have had the small forward.
Played point.
Like
okay, now if you play him at the point guard, okay, what type of offense are you running? Are you playing high pick and roll the way they play it now?
Yes.
I mean, would you play high pick and roll with Magic Johnson?
No.
Probably not.
No.
Okay, now this is a league now that demands that you have to play high pick and roll. So if you're not going to play him at the point where he can play high pick and roll, what do you play him at?
So you're saying more to me than it's worse. It's the coaching is better or different, more than the player.
The coaching and the rules are different. You know, it's just different rules. So some players in all 80s era would be different in this era. They would have to play totally different.
Well, isn't there the idea, Kenny, that throughout your athletic endeavors that there's adaptability? You have to play to the conditions that you're given. So to say that players who are great today wouldn't have adapted because they have this incredible ability to play the game, wouldn't adapt to how the game is coached and how much they train and all those sort of things. There is adaptability. I mean, so we're all still evolving. And back then, wouldn't they find a way? The greatest players and athletes would find a way. Personally, I believe to be great. It's great to go back and talk about those eras, but I just feel like every generation has great players. They're great for a reason, and if you put them in those same conditions back then, they'd find a way to get there again.
No, I think Magic would be great, but I don't think he would. In this era, I think we would be talking about Magic Johnson, probably one of the greatest centers to ever play the game.
I think he still can play point, Isaiah.
I don't. No way he would be able to guard these guys
even
out
back.
But he guarded. What about you? Stop it.
That's why we went to the finals. That's why he couldn't guard us. But I'm
He didn't
just
guard
saying.
you guys back then. He put Michael Cooper on basically all.
And so that's what I'm saying. So at the point guard position today,
he put Cooper on him.
Okay, but would he be able to play high screen and roll?
I'd say yes.
And I would say, I would think in this game today, the way it's coached and the way the centers are at 6'8", 6'9", Magic Johnson now would revolutionize the center position and be something totally different that we've never seen before, other than the point guard position that he revolutionized. So at the point guard position, he was the standard, and I think in this era, he would be the standard at the center position, not the point guard position.
Point center. He'd
still be point center. I think with his mindset, whatever position, he's going to have the ball in his hand.
I would think he's
going to have the ball in his hand.
So you're saying he would come up to the high post and make moves and pass from the center position, or go to the low post, do moves and make a pass from there that we had never seen before.
Yeah, that's what I think.
From up top.
Yeah, I don't think he would be coming down, playing high screen and roll, stepping behind, shooting a three, shaking you, and he wouldn't be doing all that. Now, what he would be doing as a center is when he's catching it, you saying, oh, well, what are we going to do now when he has it? Because now he can get to the basket, I mean, it's totally different than him coming down the floor, looking at D Rose and everything. So that's what I mean, like the way offenses are played right now, he would be a totally different player in this era.
I appreciate you doing that, because the guy handling the beep button upstairs said, just not at all. Take it back to life. Are you intrigued by this? I mean, you just came off of playing in this current era.
Right.
Grant, are you intrigued by the possibility of seeing how your skill set translated to another time in the NBA?
As a fan, it would have been fun to play in the 80s. And first of all, I do agree that the 80s was the best era. And I think this current era is certainly entertaining, but I think because of the rule changes and the style of play, it is an easier era to play. I sometimes wish, I could be a little bit younger playing today. But I think you guys are all right. I think a couple of things. One, I think it's always hard to compare eras and players. Like I watched Wilt Chamberlain and some of the moves and the finger rolls he would do back in the '60s, and think, how would he fare against Shaq today? And as great and as dominating as he wasn't as dominant as Shaq. But you'd think that he would adapt if he came of age at the same time that Shaquille would, just like most players. So, I mean, there's sort of that angle. And then I think too,
But there would be no Shaq if there wasn't Wilt, because Wilt showed you how to take it off, to dribble it off, to, play with the Globetrotters. So he showed Shaq a style that a big man had never seen, the skill set. So I agree that, but there are guys who are, I would say, trendsetters and rule makers. And until 80s guys, this is how I think they're great. There were rule changes because of them. Michael Jordan, there was an illegal offense because of him.
That was me.
And Isaiah.
No, I'm just saying. That was Lambeer and I that started.
On one side of the floor and lifting everybody else. They said, you know what, that's illegal.
They said we got to change those.
They're too good. They're too good for that. So we're illegal. You know, Charles Barkley, the back down rule.
Him and Mark Jackson,
They were like, no, you're too good to have the ball more than 6 seconds back. So what guy are they changing rules about now?
I think a lot of that is the evolution of the coaching, too, and defenses have gotten so much better in the schemes. I mean, when you watch a tape of the 80s, like the Lakers-Celtics in the finals, it looks like nobody's playing any defense to me. Like, nobody's picking up full court. Guys are cutting through the lane.
Yeah, see Dennis Johnson going, guys?
No, he got after people, but I'm saying there was a lot more movement. There was less spacing, right? You had a lot more movement. But as an answer to that, Chuck Daly said, all right, we're going to start knocking people around. Pat Riley did. So now the game gets more physical. Then the rules change. I think the point is the game is always evolving. It's always changing.
When I look at Chicago, they're the team that's more similar to our Detroit Piston team than anybody right now.
Yes.
You know, built around Rose and Noah and everything. I look at the Chicago Bulls, their defensive mentality, their rebounding the basketball, their perimeter game. I look at the Bulls as the Detroit Pistons of the 80s.
And you said Memphis?
I think the Memphis Grizzlies,
yeah,
too.
Grizzlies,
Put that
too.
in that category.
When we come back, in this segment we're calling You Remind Me, we're going to ask these guys if there was a story that they didn't want to be reminded of, what would it be? And they'll reveal it, we hope, here on Open Court. Welcome back to Open Court. In this show, we have talked about players that you are reminded of. You know, somebody reminds me of Kenny Smith playing, or a current day guy. Oh, he reminds me of this guy. Here, in the reminder theme, it is now, oh, that story. Don't remind me. It's that painful. I still don't want to go there. Isaiah, go there.
It is still my high school loss. I got two of them. My high school loss to De La Salle. We're up 1. Guy hits a 3-quarter shot, knocks us out of the tournament. My senior year, we're all in tears. And my second one is, Bird steals the ball. Those are my two. Oh, don't remind me.
Yeah. And do people from time to time still remind you, or is there any escaping some of those reminders? A little clip comes on.
And now there's a steal by Bird. Underneath the DJ, lays it in. Right at 1 second left. What a play by Bird. Bird stole the inbounding pass.
Somebody will walk up to you and say, always in Boston, or somebody from Boston, hey, thank you. I was at that game. Shut up.
That's cruel. Smitty, don't remind me.
I see him every day, basically, 3D. We lost to 3D in New Orleans with the Kenny Anderson shot. Ooh. On the line.
Changed the rules.
Oh, this is...
we changed the rules.
College. This is in college. Georgia Tech, Michigan State.
That was a great game.
NCAA tournament?
We were arguing this. The foot was on the line, and the referees thought we were arguing the shot clock.
Right.
He got it off before the buzzer, but his foot was on the line.
It was on the line.
There was no replay.
There was no replay back then.
And then the Lakers.
Steve Smith goes right to the rack, lost the ball. He goes to the floor. There's no foul.
How is that not a foul?
Ooh, don't remind me. Oh, that's not even me.
It hurt you too, Ernie.
I feel your pain from a distance.
I work with 3D, and I see Shaq because he works it. So those two guys.
It never hurt.
So you got to see them every day, the guys that hurt
day.
you. Oh,
Well, mine are similar, too. In college, get to the Final Four. We face UNLV. We're up by 11 at halftime. Kenny's rolling, I'm rolling. Kenny gets in foul trouble. He comes out the game. And now I got to listen to Greg Anthony every time the Final Four comes out.
We all do, 3D.
I never played against Greg. I listen to him all the time.
And, of course, we got to listen to somebody else every time.
But that's
Get
you and
swept.
Kenny. That's you and Kenny Anderson you're talking about.
Well, college and then
yeah.
NBA right here.
Yeah, don't remind. Ernie, you had to remind me.
That sounds like it might be a new show. Don't remind me. Kenny, don't remind me.
Well, when I first got in the league, I didn't have an appreciation, I thought, for guys sometimes coming off the bench. So I should joke around a lot. So we get the stat sheet at the end. And my thing was I would never look at a stat sheet, but I would grab it and go, I'm not going to look, but what does the nip mean? It's funny right now. It's funny right now. So the nip did not play, right? So I would always, and it's like, oh, man. The late, great Derek Smith, who passed away, was like, it's not going to be funny when you're on the other end of it. So I'm in Detroit and playing with Doug Collins. In my first game, I'm sitting there and I'm looking, and I'm like, is this gonna be my first game not playing ever in an NBA game? I played every game. I've never been in a game and not played. And so it's like 6 seconds to go, and we're down 3. And he goes, let's get 1, 2, and let's say if I'm Ernie's me, he goes 3. I'm like, I'm known for threes, and he passed me up. That was my moment, and the first time I actually shed a tear. Wow. on an NBA bench.
Well, you got DNP CD.
I got CD, coaches. The NIP CD.
How old were you?
I was 33.
33 and shedding a tear. I mean, that's how much it means to us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
my first time.
I mean, that's huge. Like, 33 years old, NBA career, Kenny Smith, world champion, everything else. You crying on the bench.
Because the dude didn't put me in.
That's awesome.
No, man. I'm mad right now. I'm like, tearing up.
What you want to do, Kenny? What you want to do?
Well, I ain't want to do it. My first DNIP CD.
I'll bet you I got more 3 billions in the box score than any of you guys.
Oh, yeah, classic.
3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Zeros across.
Zeros across the board. I had a lot of those in my career.
But is there a don't remind me?
Oh yeah. It's always same one. It'll never leave me. Final Four, 1988, and we have a phenomenal team, and I have a horrible game. I shot 2 for 13 against Oklahoma. Mookie was all over me, and that's the one game that I still think of. And we were talking about it during the break. You don't really think about the times you won and the success. You always latch on to what you wished you could have done, and as a competitor, that's part of it. You lay yourself out there. I'm sure the Spurs will never, ever forget Game 6 against Miami. I mean, that's one that will just forever stay with them. But it's all part of it. You lay yourself out there, and you're going to have some moments like that.
Grant, you're the rookie on the panel, so you'll go last. Go ahead, Bones.
Thank you, EJ. Well, the piggyback what Steve just mentioned, as far as the team goes, the game that was playing with the San Antonio Spurs, 2006, we're playing against Dallas, and we are up by 3 points, and we have a timeout, and it's Dallas's ball. And all we have to do at that point, basically, to get ourselves in a position to win another title, and then we won the next year, would be to not foul and let Dallas score 2. And Manu Ginobili fouls Dirk Nowitzki driving in and scores a layup, and we ended up losing the game, going to overtime, losing that game, which would have put us in position to have a chance to do what Steve did, and that was win three in a row.
Was that Game 7?
That was Game 7, and we lost at home. And it was right in our hands there. We reflect to that all the time, and that's something that I just do not like to get reminded of. That, and then on a personal level, I wore Jimmy Z's one time to high school, and that was...
Those like Zubas?
Yeah, like the Jimmy Z's that you latch around. The Velcro pants.
I don't know what those were.
Yeah, this is not a career.
I was like, wait, you could have kept that to yourself. I never would have known. Now we're all going to be Googling it.
Still have friends.
Ernie's got a fashion faux pas that he hasn't forgotten.
No, it's...
Elevator Ernie, great smuggler.
Hey, it's not my turn. It's not my turn. It's...
Well, I got a lot of them,
Grant's
but
turn.
I'll stick to 2. One, 2010 in Phoenix. We playing against the Lakers, Western Conference Finals. Game 6, we're at home, and I'm guarding Kobe pretty much the whole series. And, last play of the game, I think we're down maybe 2 points, about 30 seconds, last minute of the game. And I'm guarding Kobe, and I guessed right. I mean, he went right, I guessed right. He pump faked, I didn't go for it. I jumped with him as he went up to shoot it. Everything was perfect defensively, and he still hits a three-pointer in my face, and then he taps Alvin Gentry on the butt as he's running down the court the other end. So that was something that, you know, you just, man, like we could have, that team was, we had a chance. We felt like we had a chance. We played so well, and that was a tough one. And then for me, pretty much all last year with the Clippers. I mean, I love the organization. I love my teammates, but I didn't play. And so all last year. Pretty much all last year.
The whole year?
You get 1 minute?
29 games, 437 minutes worth in 2013. That coming from...
well, I didn't remember any of them anyway.
Yeah,
we don't have to remind you.
It was tough, man.
I remember none of those minutes.
And yes, and to your point, yes, don't remind me about the slam dunk contest at the Omni before a Hawks game
But what was
many
this now?
moons
I'm new.
ago.
What was
You'll
this?
see it.
Oh, you'll see it.
You'll hear it now. You'll see it.
Elevator Ernie.
Elevator.
There's a special easy button upstairs all year long that they do.
People are having a bad day. They just hit the easy button. Here comes Elevator Ernie slam dunk. Anyway, that does it for this edition of Open Court. We certainly appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next time.